All right, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to break down the fretboard in groups of 3 strings. So we get our root, our third, and our fifth, and they exist on separate strings. Okay, so we're going to do the first, second, third strings, and then we're going to move to the second, third, fourth, fifth, and then fourth, fifth, and sixth. That's how we're going to approach this. So what we want to do is let's just take a chord like the G major chord, and let's look at it on the first, second, and third strings. And what we want to do is we want to find our groups of root, third, fifth in various different places. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to try and place my root, which is G, because I'm on a G chord, as the lowest note. Well, the lowest string I'm using right now is the third string, because I'm going to use 3, 2, and 1 at this point. So G is going to be my lowest one. Well, there's G right there. But in order for you to see what we're doing, what I'm going to do is take that G, I'm going to move up to the 12th fret. So G, octave G. So there's my G. Now, the root, third, fifth, root major third, perfect fifth, would be G, B, and D. So I need to find my B, which is right here. It's underneath on the 12th fret. And then D, my fifth, would be located at the 10th fret of the first string. Now, as we listen to that, we're hearing the root, major third, perfect fifth. And oftentimes when you're learning these sorts of things, just take some time to listen. Take some time to look, okay? So first listening, if we listen to the scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's our notes right there. Root, third, fifth. If we visualize this, what I want you to realize, and I'm going to try and show you as many shortcuts, if you want to call them that, as I possibly can, by looking at different ways of seeing this stuff on your fretboard and relating it to something you might already know. So what we're really doing right now is we're taking a 5th string bar chord, which is the A shape, if you know your cage chording system. And again, if you don't, it's okay. But it's your 5th string bar chord. That's where this is coming from. So root, third, fifth. Okay, that means if you wanted to play a C chord, for instance, as long as you could find your 5th string bar chord, you could look at these first 3 strings and go root, third, fifth. Okay, so if you heard somebody play this C chord, instead of just doing that, you could go, okay, I think I want to emphasize the third. And you could find it. Okay, so there's 2 things happening here with each one of these. There's the terminology of the intervals, root, third, fifth, and then there's the notes, C, E, G, or in the case of G major, it's G, B, D. Okay, so the easiest way to think about that is just count up on your fingers: G, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, G. Now that's not always going to work because some keys have sharps and flats, but again, I'm not going to get all crazy with that. But just understand that. So when I'm playing this, and you can always look at your fretboard and figure out your notes too. But, so G, B, and D. Right there. Finding it off the 5th string bar chord of the A shape of the cage system. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is find one, these same notes, but they're going to wind up being in a different order. And we call that an inversion. Okay? So for instance, right now I'm playing all 3 notes and they're in proper order. G, B, D. Root, third, fifth. Well, watch this. If I move down, I could move up, but I'm going to move down to make this a little bit easier to see. If I move down here to the 6th string bar chord, which is the E shape, if you know what that is, and I look at the first 3 strings, I see this. Let's look at what I'm playing there. I'm playing the notes B, G, and B, D, and G. Sorry about that. So B, D, G. Okay? So right there as I'm playing that, I notice that they're out of order. I have my third, my fifth, and my root, but my root is down here now. Where up here, my root was the lowest note, my B was the middle note, and my D was the highest note. Now all of a sudden I've got B here as the lowest note, and then D, and then G on the bottom. Okay, it's the highest note, if you will, not the lowest note. So what's happening here is we've switched the order. We call this an inversion. Okay, this is what people refer to as the first inversion, if you've ever heard that term before. First inversion simply means that the third is now the lowest note. of that root third fifth. The third is the lowest note, okay? Now, it doesn't change anything, but it is nice to know because when I go to play this, I know this is my third. I know this is B. And again, there might be a host of other ways you know that by knowing all the notes on your fretboard or whatever it might be. And this is just going to reinforce that logic that you might already have. If you don't already have that logic, you've been introduced to a new idea, okay? So there's my third, my fifth, and my root, B, D, and G, sitting right there, okay? So what do we call this then? Since all those are in proper order, we call this the root position, okay? So this is root position, it's normal. This are the same notes, but we're gonna call this the first inversion, okay? That makes sense. So it's still root third fifth, but the third is the lowest note now. So we have third, fifth, root, okay? And the next one we're gonna learn is right here. Now this is gonna look like a D chord. If you know your cage system, I'm playing the D shape. If you don't, you're just gonna have to understand that what I'm doing is taking the D chord, moving up D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G. So I'm moving right here. And when I play this shape now, all of a sudden, I've got the fifth, the root, and the third. So if we think about that, okay, I have D, G, and B. So it's the same three notes again, but they're in a different order. Now the fifth is the lowest note. So we call this a second inversion. So when people refer to second inversion, what they're saying is the fifth is now the lowest note. Okay, so root, third, fifth, root, fifth, root, third. That's what's happening. So with those three shapes, we can start learning how to maneuver around the fretboard and become aware of this. And again, I want to keep reminding you to think about two things. Think about the intervals and think about the notes and just get it straight in your head. Don't be in a hurry. Just think about the intervals. Think about those notes. Root, third, fifth. G, B, D. Third, fifth, root, right? B, D, G. Here we've got our fifth, root, third, D, G, B, okay? And just kind of roll that through your brain. Now, if we step back out, we take a little bit of a larger view of this, we're seeing a fifth string bar chord, which is giving us the root position. We see the sixth string bar chord, which is giving us the first inversion. And then we see the D shape right here, which is giving us the second inversion. Okay? So just trying to get used to that. And what I recommend is just getting used to being able to move around. Like you might do something like this. And you could move up. Not that I'm probably going to play it that high, but it is there. So as I'm seeing this G chord, I can visualize and think, well, if I just played, for instance, the root position, okay? And remember, if you can kind of see this one, even though it's at the 12th, the 10th and 12th frets here, because I don't have enough space down here, but if I can see that one as the root position, as the first one, the primary one, then my first inversion and my second inversion follow along. And that's important to be able to do that.